want to, this has been tossing around in my head for a while, and sometimes I feel like I want to defend it, and at times like this, I want to explore it more as the source of my problems, or somewhere in between. And that is negative thought. I have been considering doing a video to defend the power of negative thinking. Negative thinking is got its problems. There's no question about that, right? In terms of, if you look at saying negative things about yourself, even just in your head, and I do this all the time, right? I mean, I am completely used to, and my whole life has been ragging on myself, right? You're not good enough at this. You're too fat. You don't do this. Why can't you be a normal person? Shit like that constantly, and that barrage absolutely destroys a person, I think. Everything that I can see, you're supposed to look at yourself in the mirror and say, I'm a good person and I do good things. Well, feels dishonest to me. That's really anything that I look at myself and it may just be that I'm blind to whatever positive traits I have, but I don't see them. And it goes along with a much broader and more general negative thinking, which is why I'm able to do the jobs that I'm able to do, which is that I can look at things and why I do the reviews that I do on the games, etc. I can look at the things and I can find the flaws with them. That doesn't mean they're completely worthless, right? But it also led me to thinking about art a little bit, which is that I suspect that the most effective and powerful artists are pointing out, they're not just simply putting a beautiful scene out there. They're making a social statement that's at variance with the accepted realities within a society. And that, in a sense, that relies on that negative contrarian point of view of, no, you're doing it wrong. Look at the horror here. Look at what is so awful. And I think that's the most impactful art, right? And it kind of makes sense. It links into that idea of the suffering artist, right? That you can't create good art unless you suffer. And then there's people who create, art that's considered fantastic and whatever, but didn't suffer at all. But is it really impactful? Does it really move people in the same way? And I would argue no. And, you can be technically very, very good as an artist. And you can maybe make people happy with your art in a certain sort of way, without yourself suffering. But I think that the kind of mindset that creates the kind of art that really can change stuff, battery issues, has to be looking at things from a different perspective, and a perspective that sees the flaws in reality. Now, does that person have to be negative on themselves? I don't know. God damn it. the person may be able to see all the flaws and maybe see themselves as a positive facet at the same time. However, I would suspect that there's a tendency of people who are used to that negative thinking, who have gotten used to it their whole life, who have always used it for themselves, to be able to better apply it to other things. I just suspect that the practice is there. And that's sort of, where I'm seeing the value of this sort of negative thinking. And if you start being dishonest about yourself, or at least not as negative, not making the same critiques, because it's a little unfair to call it dishonest, but that's how I always see it. Like, I see people who are happy and I say, well, they're just lying to themselves. They don't see the misery of reality, in all its splendor. Because if they did, they couldn't be happy. But maybe you could be. Maybe you can take happiness in the misery of reality, yet without denigrating yourself. Unfortunately, as a part of reality, I find that hard. I'm not positive. It's sort of if I started, self-actualizing and aggrandizing myself and stuff like that, sure, maybe I would be able to approach other people and feel like I'll tell you what makes me feel this way. The one time I did coke, but also certain other times, I get into that sort of. I mean, I'm still not pushy in terms of like shoving my way into somebody's existence. That's more than I can do, and it seems to be kind of the common human experience. But it's like it elevated me to what I would qualify as asshole status, right? Where I just am sure that the things I'm saying can help impact someone else and whatever. And sometimes when I'm just drunk, I feel a little bit of that. Usually, low on sleep can also do it. And those are sometimes where I'm at my most effective and whatnot. But it's not something I like being. Like I said, it's asshole status, right? It's kind of like the line I gave my first wife when we first met and went out to a bar together with a friend, a mutual friend. It was obvious she was interested in me, and I was giving whatever responses I give. But I don't remember quite what the words were leading up to it. Essentially, she said something. I had assumed we were going to bed together, basically. And she said something along the lines of, well, I hadn't decided yet where I was going to sleep. And I came back with, and this is pure assholishness, but, it kind of worked. You're too hot for me right now to go anywhere else, And it's funny because we talked about it like the next day or whatever, and she's like, I thought you were a complete player when you said that, but it was right. And yeah, But that's totally not me, right? Like, that's drunken asshole me, right? That's something that doesn't happen very often. Yet, it's that complete, like, absolute assurance. um, and in a recent, it's not like it's successful most of the time. Let's just put it that way, right? Like, first of all, normally I don't have the power to do that in person. So, like, the couple of times that I've convinced myself to break through and reach out, and sometimes with that kind of attitude or whatever, it's not in that sort of immediate where the feeling is actually there, right? It's a little after. And that doesn't work at all. So, like, if I send somebody, a PM or something like that, or, there've been a couple of cases where I've reached out to someone afterwards and said the kind of things, and it's like, yeah, no, that just doesn't work. It has to be in that exact moment. And there are just too many filters in my way there. Anyway, that's all not supposed to be here. Those filters are automatic, right? Like, I don't think that those are a matter of negative speaking, of negative thinking, or speaking to myself. I think that those are just so ingrained, like, it wouldn't make a damn bit of difference. And one of the great positives I see about myself is I am almost always not an asshole to other people, right? Like, that is sort of one of the core things that I believe in sort of, my innate morality is don't be an asshole to other people. If you've got to ask somebody the time or directions, that's okay. But you don't just walk up to somebody and intrude into them, among other things. But I've had my moments, there's no question of that, and, it's like, do you trade away everything you kind of believe in? And that you believe in, I mean, deep down to the core, like that, don't interfere with what's not yours, and shit like that. Don't intrude on other people's consciousness. Or, do you do things that you believe are completely immoral in order to make yourself a little happier? Like, I'd be a hell of a lot more comfortable stealing, right? Like, I don't see the immorality in that anywhere near as much as the immorality is of intruding into someone else or being an asshole, the way I was a couple of times. Anyway, and it's not like I have a problem. Like, I've had a couple of friends who are assholes just like that, right? Very much so. It's not like I only stick with my own little introverted, righteous type, although both my wives were of that nature, and very much. And the way I see it is, I was given a certain pass on at least the one time, but I don't know. Anyway, because it worked. But this was supposed to be more about negative thinking, and I've been watching videos, and so, like, one of the few things that I do say positive about myself is that I am very respectful of other people, right? I don't want to hurt them. I don't, unless I love them. I don't want to. I don't want to I don't want to intrude into what they deal with. I'm very honest, blatantly so. We have to get into that at some point. So I've always wondered why discrete math is called discrete. I figure it's kind of sneaky and whatnot, and what that would mean blatant math is. But and yes, I know they're using discrete in a different fashion, but it kind of doesn't work. Anyway, there are just a serious number of things that like I do see as positive about myself, and that are at odds with things that make for happiness. But one of those, and the one that we're trying to talk about here and failing, is this idea of negative thinking. Like, one of the few things I'm very good at, I think, is finding the flaws, right? That's what I make my living off of, or what I did make my living off of, and what I will again if I get hired. That's what I bring to my videos. And again, finding the flaws in something doesn't mean that that's all there is to it. It's just harder for me to express what's actually good about something. And it's kind of funny. So I watch a ton of videos by raid creators, the content creators, and they're all like, first of all, they're all hypercharged to an extent, the popular ones, to an extent that like leaves me, wow, this would be a really annoying person to be around if they're actually like that. And I suspect some of them are. Some of them are much more mellow. The mellow is good. But the most popular people who put shit out there on the internet for everything are generally, right out there, all excited and everything like that. And it's like, look, first of all, it looks fake as hell to me, right? Like, at least half the time. And it's like, how can you cope with that? How can you cope with somebody who's putting on that act, right? Why do you want to watch that? Now, from my point of view, I don't know. I'm trying to move away from the more positive, more excited, more energetic type of people. I don't mind when it's real. Real excitement is okay. The facsimile of it that's being presented, it's almost a sales job, is just obnoxious. It's like, and even when it's real, half the times I don't like it. Like, I'm thinking of my mom at like a baseball game or something, watching a ball get hit, and and jumping up like it's going to be a home run, and I'm sitting there knowing it's not, or when she gets a strike in bowling, she's dead now, so she doesn't, but when she'd get a strike in bowling, she'd be so excited, and I see so many people getting so excited about shit that seems so not exciting, right? A little bit of excitement can enter in, but it's like, don't you have any fucking reserve to you? There's another one I'm good at. I'm good at being relatively reserved about things. I'm trying to find the positives, right? But I truly believe that society as a whole has too much of a tendency to focus on that positive thinking. That kind of, I can do this, right? I can do this is great. You need it. If you don't have any of that, you become like me, right? You end up unable to act because you can't do this. You can't. Somebody has to be able to do the things that reality demands. Somebody has to be willing to take the chances on, high risk concepts. But I think it's also absolutely vital that there be people who are standing back there as the naysayers, who can bring up the why this can't be done. Now, here's the thing. Is the misery worth it? Now, I don't know if I have a choice. I really don't. Like I said, some of this is so ingrained. Like, I will mock myself if I start, doing positive thinking type shit, right? I know I will. Maybe if I had started at 6, it would have worked out okay. But at this point in my life, I know that I will end up despising myself, for it. See, there I go. I'm finding the negatives in the possible solutions, right? But it's just what I do. And I truly believe I'm right there. I truly believe I'm right. But I do believe that society needs people who can say, no, here are the risks. Here's what's wrong. Here's what's gonna happen if you do this. Now, of course, the danger on my side is I have nothing in my life that moves me in other directions, right? My past wife was very much into negative thinking as well. Not so much, not as bad as I am. No one is as far as I am, I think. But, if I tried to convince her to go for a walk or whatever, she would immediately see the reasons why that is a bad idea. And to be honest, both of us are probably right about that, right? Which is that, yeah, it probably won't be as enjoyable as one might hope. It probably won't be, it'll probably be tiring and miserable. But there might be moments in there that are positive, and more positive than the moments, than the entirety of not going, right? So is an overall unpleasant experience like life made worthwhile? In the balance, it's unpleasant, just like going for the walk would be. But are those moments that are positive enough, not to balance it out, but to make it better? Better than nothing. Better than the equivalent of just, just sitting at home and basically doing what's comfortable, what's not miserable, yet provides no moments of joy. Now, and then there's the worst, which is is it worth the chance of those moments of joy because this is the reality, right? Most times that I actually do something active, there's nothing valuable to it. It's just the reason that I went out was perhaps the hope that maybe something neat would happen, something nice, something good. And not something that overpowers the generalized misery. And again, we're straying, but straying to the thing that I often tried when I was much younger, which was look, you can try to change the world and try to make it positive. That's hard. But can you change your own viewpoint? Accept what is and take that as the positive. And that's the thing. Can I take my misery? Because can I make my misery the positive? Can I make that the good? Right? Whatever that is, right? You know, it could be the pain of exercise. That's at a very superficial level. What about if I take it to the point of the mental and emotional pain and the anguish and the depression and all of that, and just embrace that and try to take pleasure and joy in that? So I don't have to actually be active or change anything. Is that the answer? It may be. It may be. Again, this was more a sounding board than anything else. I know I didn't really go into where I wanted to with this. I want to dissect things and make it more useful to others. But I also wanted to explore it a little bit in a way that's not just, you know, in my own head, but coming out of my mouth. All right. Cheers.